On this day in history, November 7th, 1872, the cargo ship Mary Celeste leaves Staten Island for Genoa, Italy, and is found mysteriously abandoned 4 weeks later. The Mary Celeste had many owners, captains, and names before being captained by Benjamin Spooner Briggs in 1872, and readied Mary Celeste for the journey to Genoa, Italy, with his wife and 2-year-old daughter on board. They were meant to leave New York Harbor on November 5th, but were delayed due to bad weather. Another ship, the De Gratia, captained under David Morehouse, was also headed to Genoa, following the same general route, and left 8 days after Mary Celeste. After about a month at sea, Captain Morehouse was headed towards the coast of Portugal when they noticed a large ship coming towards them. As it approached, they could see no one on board. The sails were either partially set or missing entirely, and most of the rigging was damaged, with ropes hanging loosely over the side. The cabin interiors were damaged slightly by water that had come in through the windows and skylights, but were otherwise in decent condition. They found personal effects still scattered about Briggs's cabin, but the ship's papers were missing, along with the captain's navigational tools. The galley equipment was neatly put away, and none of the food or 1,700 barrels of alcohol were missing. There was no obvious signs of fire or violence, and all evidence indicated a neat and orderly departure from the ship by one of the missing lifeboats. They found the captain's daily log, with the last entry dated at 8 a.m. on November 25th. 9 days ago. It recorded Mary Celeste's position nearly 400 nautical miles away from where De Gratia found her. De Gratia. Captain Morehouse split up his crew and painstakingly sailed both his ship and the Mary Celeste into the harbor at Gibraltar, expecting to make quite a bit of money salvaging the abandoned ship per maritime salvage laws. The salvage court hearings were conducted by Frederick Flood, the Attorney General of Gibraltar. Flood was described as a man whose arrogance was inversely proportional to his IQ, and who, once he made up his mind about something, could not be shifted. Flood was convinced that something criminal had happened aboard the Mary Celeste, the root cause of which probably had something to do with the 1,700 barrels of alcohol on board. He believed that the crew had gotten into the alcohol and in a drunken frenzy murdered the Briggs family and the ship's captains. He said that cuts were made at the bow of the ship with an axe to simulate a collision, and the crew fled in the lifeboat, never to be seen again. Flood even claimed to have found traces of blood on the captain's sword, found in its sheath under the bed. He was convinced that the captain of De Gratia was hiding something, specifically that the captain's log found aboard the Mary Celeste had been doctored. He could not accept that the ship had traveled over 400 miles without a crew. Flood's theories suffered significant setbacks when scientific analysis showed that the stains on the sword were not blood, and that the damage to the bow actually would have been naturally caused. With nothing concrete to support his suspicions, he reluctantly released the Mary Celeste from the court's jurisdiction. However, he remained highly skeptical of De Gratia and her crew, stating that they would be under suspicion in the court of public opinion forever. The salvage payment awarded to Captain Morehouse was only 1,700 pounds, about 1/5 of the value of the ship and its cargo. This was far lower than the general expectation, which was that it should have been 2 to 3 times that, given the level of hazard in bringing the derelict ship into port. The public became fascinated with the ghost ship Mary Celeste and what might have happened to her. Some people thought it was an elaborate insurance fraud scheme, since the Mary Celeste was heavily overinsured for the cargo she was carrying. However, the cargo wasn't found to be seriously damaged in any way. A few people believed the captains Briggs and Morehouse were partners in a conspiracy to split the salvage proceeds, but there was no evidence that the two captains were friends. Of course, piracy was considered, as pirates were very active off the coast of Morocco in the 1870s, but if it had been pirates, then why didn't they loot the ship? In 1925, historian John Gilbert Lockhart suggested that Briggs slaughtered everyone on board and then offed himself in a fit of religious mania. However, he later recounted his story and apologized to the Briggs family. Another popular theory pointed to the barrels of alcohol. If the crew had believed that the barrels were compromised and that an explosion was imminent, they might have taken off in the lifeboat and then accidentally lost the tether back to the ship, when it never exploded. However, Captain Briggs was well known to be an experienced seaman, and with the lack of an explosion and the good condition of the ship's cargo, this seems unlikely. Commentators generally agree that something extraordinary and alarming must have happened to cause an entire crew to abandon a sound and seaworthy ship that had ample provisions. Plus, the ropes to the lifeboat had been cut, not untied, which indicates it was done in a hurry. Stories began to emerge of alien encounters, a paranormal attack, and even a giant squid that was stalking the crew and plucking them off the ship one by one. Almost a year after she left, the Mary Celeste returned to New York. The scandal of the salvage hearings in Gibraltar, along with stories of bloodshed and murder, made her an unpopular ship. She was abandoned again, this time tied up in the harbor, rotting away. It was still another year before she was put back to use. In 1884, 12 years after she was found abandoned drifting in the Atlantic, she was captained by Gilman C. Parker, who conspired with a group of Boston merchants to fill her with worthless cargo, misrepresenting it on the ship's manifest, and insuring her for $30,000, about $1 million today. They intentionally ran her aground in a well-known and well-charted coral reef near Haiti. Captain Parker and his crew then rowed themselves to shore and made an insurance claim for the alleged value. But it didn't work. Parker and the merchants were tried in Boston for conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. Parker was additionally charged with willfully casting away a ship, a crime known as barratry, which at the time carried the death penalty. The insurance claims were ordered to be paid back in full, and the charge of barratry against Parker was deferred. Parker was allowed to go free, but his professional reputation was ruined, and he died in poverty 3 months later.